Hey, thanks, Paula. Thank you. Let's just turn this for a little while. Yep, of course. I'm just going to grab my notes because there are a few specifics. Criticism hurts. Let's admit it. Being criticized is one of the most uncomfortable feelings one feels in everyday life. Have you ever thought about why even the most strong or stoic individual can feel emotionally hurt by criticism? Let's think about it for a minute. Criticism attacks the image we have of ourselves or who we would like to be seen as. That's why criticism hurts so much. When a person feels hurt, it's very easy to lash out in anger, to tell that person something harsh or something rude. When you feel hurt, you want to attack back. It's only human nature. But what we can do is we can try to appeal to the better part of our human nature and respond in a way that's non-defensive and will de-escalate a conflict. Because if you ask me, something that the world has far too much of these days is conflict. So let's try to get rid of conflict in our daily lives. I'm going to introduce a 5-step plan that will help you hopefully de-escalate any uncomfortable situation with criticism that you may face in your everyday life. Let's begin with step 1. How to respond when somebody criticizes you. One option is simply to walk away. Another might be to attack back with a criticism of your own, or to kind of be caught off guard and make a rather lame excuse for what happened. But aren't these actually very strong ways to respond? Many psychologists would say that the strongest comeback is a non-defensive response. The first step in this non-defensive response is to listen. It's important to try to find out what your adversary is actually upset about before proceeding. So don't immediately counter back. Let them say what's on their mind. The next step is to acknowledge that your adversary has a point, or at least has an opinion. Now don't worry, I'm not asking you to be doormats and just roll over and let them have their way and agree just to smooth things over. No, if you start taking your adversary's point of view seriously, they will also have more respect for you in return and be more willing to listen to your side of the story. Next is to ask questions. If there was something in the criticizer's criticism that you didn't understand, this is a good time to ask them, like, okay, so what, can you tell me, like, how did that remark hurt your friend's feelings? Do you want to kind of tell me a little bit more about that so maybe we can figure out what really happened there and I won't do it again? After you've listened to everything that the criticizer has to say, it's a great idea to paraphrase what the criticizer has said to you. This shows that you've listened and taken seriously what they said, and it's also a time to clarify whether you've understood what made them uncomfortable in the first place. Finally, once both you and the person who criticized you agree on what the problem is, this is the time to start moving forward to find a solution to your problem. With these 5 simple steps, I feel that most uncomfortable situations where we are criticized or verbally attacked in life can be easily smoothed over, and we can reach a constructive conclusion that's good for both sides. Now, it's one thing just to talk about this in the abstract point of view, but it's quite another thing to imagine a situation where a person is going to criticize me. So I'm going to give you a little background to what you'll see next. In this next section of my presentation, we're going to have a role play between me and Chuka. The setup is that Chuka is a guest in my home, and he's really uncomfortable about the standards of hygiene in my kitchen. So he's going to criticize me, and then we'll see how that plays out. After you've observed our role play, we're then going to have a couple of minutes of Q&A with the audience, where the audience members can ask us anything they want to know about conflict resolution or anything that they were confused about during the role play. All right, so now without further ado, I'm going to welcome my guest, Chuka, to the stage. So I'm here in the kitchen.
Katya,
Hey, what's up, Chuka?
what are you doing with that? Is that meat?
Yeah.
But
It's our dinner, yeah. I know you're a big, strong guy, but you've got a big appetite, so I'm sure you'd like me to cook some meat for you, right?
But you're not supposed to cut it like that and decorate it in such a manner. It's not hygienic.
You mean, this is just the knife I use for basically everything in the kitchen. I think I also cut the bread with it too. And oh yeah, I also cut up the fruit we had for dessert last night with it as well. Yeah, it did taste kind of funny, right?
Yeah, maybe I will pass on the meal.
What?
Do you...
You don't like my cooking?
I'm just concerned about the hygiene, and I don't really want food poisoning.
Okay, I'm listening.
Do you use soap on the knife?
No, I don't use soap on the knife. I just usually rinse it off a little bit or wipe it with a towel, which we also put in the bathroom afterwards too, for your man. Okay, so Chuka, so anyway, so I just want to say that, I never really thought about this hygiene stuff, but thanks for bringing it up. I was really listening to what you were saying there. Can I ask you, can you tell me exactly what makes you uncomfortable about the way I'm doing the hygiene in my kitchen?
Because I believe that there are certain practices that you should follow that are good etiquette in the kitchen. And I don't see you following them, and that's why I'm concerned myself.
All right. Okay. Well, I can see you have a point there. I mean, yeah. I'm just trying to. I'm not so used to looking after the house by myself. Usually, my mom does all this, and I've always been too busy with studies and stuff to really pay attention how she was doing stuff in the kitchen. But yeah, I guess you got a point there, Chuka. So do you want to tell me about some of the things I could do to maybe do things a little cleaner when I'm cooking this meat here? Anything?
So you mentioned that you use the same towel as you do in the bathroom. Yeah. Well, the bathroom actually contains fecal particles in the air.
Oh my gosh.
And it's
horrible.
That could, if you use your towel for cleaning your knife, then that could transmit the diseases from the bathroom that would not normally be ingested. So you can see that's just one aspect.
Okay.
And another thing is using the same knife for everything.
Oh.
Because the meat has certain bacteria and other microorganisms that are not easily gotten rid of and are very toxic.
Oh, really? Okay.
They are very bad for the human digestive system, and I think that you should either use a proper knife for the meat and use a simpler knife for the rest of cutting bread and fruit.
Oh gosh, Chuka, I gotta say I feel pretty sheepish thinking about how I've done things this whole time now, but it's a little awkward, but I'm really glad you pointed this out. So just to kind of sum up what you were asking me to do, stop using the same towels and tools and whatnot in the bathroom and in the kitchen, and then also to have a knife that is only used for certain purposes in the kitchen to try to stop the germs from spreading. Have I got you right on that?
That's exactly
awesome.
Right.
Okay, that's cool. So Chuka, you know what? From now on, I would like you to come and help me in the kitchen, because I'd really like to learn from you how to do things in a more hygienic way.
Wonderful.
And then definitely, whenever I make something, you'll want to eat it, and I won't get my feelings hurt. You don't like my cooking or something. Yeah. All right, awesome, bro. That's really good. Yeah, cool. All right, so that concludes our role play. So now we have a few minutes left. Timekeeper, how are we doing?
9 minutes.
We've gone through 9 minutes?
9 minutes, yeah.
Great, so I think we have about 3 or so minutes for Q&A. So does anyone have any questions about conflict resolution based on this? Rishi?
Usually that was really good, but usually criticism isn't that nicely delivered. You normally just say, why are you using that knife? Not like, oh, that's the right way. The way you delivered it was quite polite. So how would you deal with criticism that's more rough and to the face?
Probably in the same way. If somebody criticizes me in a way that seems more aggressive or harsh, I try to calm things down by not by not responding in an aggressive way, to try to see if maybe we can kind of calm things down a little bit. Because I've often noticed that if you're calm, then people around you will calm down as well. So I think that you could respond in roughly the same way, and maybe you could help the person calm down and be a little more polite in the rest of the conversation. Any other questions? All right, Anand.
What would you do if someone criticizes you in a more rude way, but in a group setting?
I think that actually that's a really good one, Anand, and I have heard that. I've read some examples online of people who say were targeted with things that were a bit worse, like say racist or sexist harassment, and I've heard a good way to make the bully, honestly, this would be bullying, look about this big, is to ask them to explain what they mean by that remark. It's actually a pretty good way of turning the tables on somebody who's trying to bully you, to say, oh, and do you think you could explain what you mean by that? So actually, I think this 5-step plan is really good if you genuinely want to know what criticism the person has, or if you want to turn the tables on somebody who's trying to bully you or somebody else by showing them for being what a bigoted person they are, perhaps. All right, Paula.
What would you say are the criticisms we face the most in our daily lives, or like you face the most?
I would say the criticisms I may face would be feedback from colleagues, probably. Like my supervisor perhaps asking why I designed an experiment a certain way, maybe people who I share my workspace with, asking about asking or sort of saying, hey, why can't we use this or something? It's always good to just talk through things. Also in personal life, well, I sometimes get some criticism from my family about things, and sometimes with family it's a little harder to be so polite because you just know them too well. But I would say things like, often criticism isn't as personal as we think it is. It's often people's curiosity or misunderstanding that can feel like a personal attack. Maybe we're tired and fed up that day and everything feels like an attack on that day. Juka, do you have anything to add to any of this?
So sometimes in the code that I'm doing, I often sometimes get criticism on my method of doing certain tasks because they aren't quite matching the way that someone else was expecting me to produce that outcome. So they would sometimes lash out in a way that I wasn't expecting because I thought I was doing the right thing. But because it's against what they believe is true or correct, so they think that they should have their say, and they often think that they have more authority to actually force their standards on me. So in that scenario, I would just, as Katja has expressed, I would acknowledge that while the view is valid and it may even be correct, but I will try and show them that both work, and that I don't have to follow exactly how they do it because they believe that it's the best way.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, Kenny.
Armed with that knowledge of the 5-step resolution, do you find you may still get emotional to criticism?
Sure. Well, you know what? It all depends on the person criticizing and the situation. I think in professional and school settings, I think it's really important to keep your temper in place and to be as calm and professional as possible to show that you're the mature one in the situation. It's easier to do with people you may not have such personal ties with. But I think that coming across with that level of stoicism among close friends and family might almost feel a bit too detached. But I think when dealing with close friends and family, you can still use this method to maybe resolve conflicts and misunderstandings in a more peaceful way rather than having things turn into an argument. But it's okay to show a little more emotion around people who are much closer to you, I think. What about you, Chuka? Any follow-up on that?
I always try and aim to strive for optimistic and positive mindset. So even when, because as I was saying to Paula, even when they can lash out on me, I even then I would try to just empathize, but also do so in a like friendly manner. Even sometimes I would don an affected personality that looks like I'm like cheering them on, but I would try and hide the fact that I am in the moment attacked, and I think it's kind of like take it till you become it. So by actually having that affected expression of positivity and happiness in the moment, even though you're feeling attacked and betrayed, you can actually recover faster from the negative criticism, and you when you're in a positive state, you actually like develop better solutions.
All right, I think that's all we have time for. Chuka, many thanks for your contributions, and thank you for your great comments and questions.
Okay, thank you.